Hello there, and welcome to the King Street podcast. My name's Andy, and I'm joined as ever by James.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Okay, yes.
Excellent. Do you do a brief who we are, in case people's first ever?
Hi, I'm James. I work at King Street Cinema as a projectionist and all-round stuff as well. And so you'll see me there most days when we're open.
Yeah, and I'm Andy, and I do podcasts and run a pub, but mainly do podcasts and watch films. And this episode we're going to focus on the 1992, which was sleeper hit cult film. It done okay, didn't it?
Sleeper hit maybe. I mean, I think probably better on VHS maybe, but I think it did well. I think at the cinema, but not like it wasn't like a hit like huge, making loads and loads of cash or anything like that.
Yeah. But it's being shown on the Friday the 21st.
Yes,
correct. As on VHS.
On VHS, that's right. So, and I think it was picked for that reason, really, as a VHS film, because I think it gained more popularity in cult as the years went by.
Yeah, and it was Cameron Crowe's second
directing film. Yeah. Not his second film worked on, though. Of course, that would be Fast Times at Richmond High, I think. That was the first film he wrote.
He wrote it.
Didn't direct it.
That's what sort of broke him through. And we've spoken about that film before, because a couple of years ago...
Put it on.
You showed it, Great film indeed. And that's what sort of got his foot in the door, so to speak.
Yeah, in the film world, yeah.
Definitely. And then his director debut was in the late 80s with Say Anything, which is another one which didn't do so well, but done well after on VHS.
Yeah, it became definitely a cult classic film.
Iconic
image of him holding the boombox.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? John Cusack.
And that was very, very, very 1980s.
Right at the end of the 80s, but does feel like so 80s, which is really strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
89 film, but feels like right bang in the middle of the 80s.
Yeah, and this one very early 90s, 92.
Yeah, you feel early 90s in this movie. Everything feels like the early 90s.
Yeah, if I had to pick films that felt 90s, this would definitely be in there.
Yeah.
And
the first half of the 90s, the more optimistic in certain respects. I don't know, still feeling parts of the 80s. Haven't quite got into the whole kind of all doom and gloomy of the edgy, really super edgy late 90s.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, how did you first see this film?
That's a good question, because I definitely saw it, I think in my 20s. I've got to say in my 20s. I remember it being about, right, okay, so before we, I suppose, talk about like the backdrop of the film, right? Mm-hmm. It's set in Seattle, it's shot in Seattle as well, so it's location, you get all that. Yeah. And the backdrop is the music of the grunge era, right? Yeah. And that being a thing that, as a teenager, very much into. So all the bands pretty much on this that were on the soundtrack, which again was extremely popular, probably more popular, I think, than the film at the time. Anyway. That was stuff that I was very much into. But I didn't see the movie. I didn't see the movie until, like I say, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years after, like, I was interested in grunge music or anything like that. I suppose because it's a rom-com, because it is very much a romantic comedy. That kind of always wasn't really a thing I was interested in, I suppose, so much when I was a teenager. So that probably why I didn't like. I remember looking at it as a teenager as a movie for older people.
Yeah, I see.
And it wasn't really one that I was like, I definitely want to see that movie. Yeah. But so that's I couldn't tell you. I'm going to say I probably did like either rent it or maybe even bought a copy of it on VHS, like maybe in like the early 2000s or something.
Okay, I definitely
for cheap.
I definitely saw it in the 90s, and I believe I rented it, but not from a rental store. I rented it from the library.
Oh right.
You could pay a little bit and get it for a week or so instead. And I remember that because it wasn't a rental copy, and you had the actual cover when you borrowed the whole
that's right.
And I didn't do that for many films. That's why it stands out.
Right.
And I was into the grunge music. I think that's what made me want to see it. Possibly I'd heard about some of the cameos in it.
I mean, it certainly has. If you're interested in the history of a Seattle grunge scene, it's got lots of faces. Yeah, lots of people who were in a lot of bands at the time, like who had Pearl Jam, pretty much the whole band, apart from Eddie, who I don't think. No, he certainly was in the band then. I see that I get really confused with the time here, but yes, he would have been. But I think because there is a fake band in the movie, isn't there?
Yeah.
And they sort of like are the backing for Matt Dillon, who's like the lead singer of this fake band. Citizen Dick, if I remember correctly, is the band's name, which is quite funny.
Yeah. I don't even want to say the title of their song because it's a spoof of it
is. So an early grunge song by Mudhoney, "Touch Me, I'm Sick," and they do a song called "Touch Me, I'm Dick." I mean, that's just what it is.
And which is a joke probably lost on a modern audience. Yeah. But yeah, it's like a time capsule of the early 90s, this movie,
definitely.
I'd say.
Yeah.
And it's 20-somethings living together, relationships.
Yeah.
And you've got the things like video dating and things like that.
Absolutely. There's video dating, which is that's probably some of the real, for me, like some of the funniest bits.
Yeah.
I'd say is that stuff.
And it's almost like a edgier pre-Friends, which came
absolutely,
a few years later.
Yeah. It certainly feels like it's got, you'd say like these days Friends vibes to it, or Friends has the sort of a feeling of singles. That
but it's a bit more out there with its humour. It's it's a bit more.
It's more grown up. It's not where obviously Friends is a sitcom aged. Sort of aimed at a more broader range of ages. This is certainly for the adult. Adults.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's probably genuinely for the audience of the characters in the film.
They're late 20s, aren't they? I'd say the majority of our main cast are in their late 20s.
That's the thing, because it's not, which was still popular at the time, a teen comedy.
Yeah, it's certainly not a teen movie.
No, it's almost like it's Cameron Crowe. And if you look at his career, you had the 2 teen comedies, and then this. Yeah. And then not long after was Jerry Maguire.
Yes.
So it is.
That's his next one, isn't it?
Yeah. Sure. Which is what won all the Oscars, and that's what made him
a bit massive name.
Yeah. So it's like he's grown up. His characters have grown up.
Yeah.
Almost like 10 years behind him. So he's writing about.
Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting guy. His career is extremely interesting.
Journalist, wasn't he?
Journalist, but which again is a music journalist predominantly, going on tour with bands. So being the guy who's basically documenting them as they're in a journalistic sense as they're on tour, but doing it at a very young age. So his career begins in his teens. He's working for Rolling Stone magazine at like 16 years old, because he's one of these gifted people that like finished college when he was like 14 or something.
I think you say 4.
But something like that. So he was working, doing the jobs that people would be 5-10 years older than him would be doing. So he was. So I don't know. I don't know if that plays a part into, and of course, sort of his career in like his development in storytelling. Fast Times is a great example of that as well, because Fast Times is based, the film and his script for the film is based on his journalism. So he was sort of undercover, pretending to be a member of the school for a year or something.
Yeah, he done the real life Never Been Kissed.
So that's crazy when you think about it. Like, how do you get away with that sort of thing? But he looked young. He looked. He wasn't that much older. That's the thing. He wasn't.
It wasn't like the Steve Buscemi meme. Hello, fellow kids. But I mean, and mentioning his journalism, Almost Famous, which have a cult film really now.
It's kind of biographical.
It's kind of. I'd say all these movies are based on his life.
Yeah, well, they're clearly based on what his interest. His interests. Yeah, definitely.
And with this, I think Say Anything was critically acclaimed but didn't do well. And I think he was looking for and succeeded in touching what's going on at the time. Because one thing I admire about this movie is a lot of films, when they come out, they're trying to hit on something, but by the time they're out, that's gone. And with this, I don't think it was. I think grunge was still.
It's a really interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's like grunge in '92. Was there, and it was very big. But grunge was still big until sort of 94, 95, I'd say.
Well, the grunge sort of phenomenon, and it really was a phenomenon, as in mainstream music, as far as mainstream music goes, lasted a very short time. I would say it would last from autumn. Here we go with like Ty. Really going to try, narrow it down. I'm going to say autumn '91.
Autumn,
right?
Okay. Yeah.
Autumn time '91, sort of like September time when Nevermind comes out, right?
Yeah. Nirvana.
The Nirvana album. Everyone knows Nevermind. Even
Well,
if
you don't know.
Okay, fair enough. And it's just one of the hugest, biggest albums of all time, But yeah, that comes out. And everything changes. It does. It's so weird. All of a sudden, this kind of music becomes everywhere, and it really does stay there until Kurt Cobain dies, which is in April of '94. So between September of '91 and April '94, I'd say grunge is everything. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't die away or disappear. It morphs into something else.
Yeah. So this film is in that right smack bang in the middle.
This is the interesting thing about the creation of this movie, because this movie is made or filmed between March and May of '91. So before that boom has happened, still it's set in Seattle. It's set in the place where grunge music sort of comes from, the area that it comes from. For the most, there are some other bands certainly that people would definitely argue about, but majority of them from that area, in Washington State. And so that boom hasn't happened yet. But by the time the films come out, which I think is September of '92, right?
Yeah.
It's all the rage. It's like it would feel to a person that didn't know that when it was made, that it was almost riding on the coattails of the grunge wave. Yeah. When really it was there before. It was made before that had started.
Well, it's interesting because correct me if I'm wrong, because I may be. Nirvana were the big, what broke it through to the mainstream, really.
Absolutely.
But Nirvana aren't in the movie,
Not in the movie, are not on the soundtrack either.
No. Whereas the other bands, if there's a big four of grunge, they're all in it.
They're all on the soundtrack, certainly. And and Chris Cornell, so the lead singer of Soundgarden, he has a little part in it as well.
Yeah.
And there are some other people, like a much smaller grunge band who I really liked called Tad, the lead singer Tad Doyle, who has a little cameo in it as well. Yeah. So there are like characters of the area, that are put into the movie.
I'd think that if it wasn't Soundgarden in the movie and it was Nirvana, this would have been a big hit.
Yeah,
possibly.
Yeah. I mean, potentially. I don't know. I mean, again, we must not downplay these other bands.
Oh yeah,
I mean, Pearl Jam. Again, in '91, when that album came out. Yeah, 10. I forget what the dates are for when that came out. But again, that was huge. That was a massive album. That's always between that and Nevermind by Nirvana. Those are the two records that are generally considered to be the pinnacle of grunge music. And that was always the fight. Who do you prefer more, like Pearl Jam or Nirvana kind of thing? I was always more Nirvana than Pearl Jam. But, whatever.
Yeah, I was always Pearl Jam.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's fine.
But, yeah, and the look of the film, it feels to me, even though there's a little bit of surreal humour in there and stuff.
Sure.
But the movie feels real.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think it has this kind of... Cameron Crowe's kind of known, I suppose, for this, to having a certain amount of naturalism in the way that his dialogue and his sort of like communications between people in their relationships, the back and forth, between the highs and the lows of relationships. It has a feeling of authenticity about it, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah. And when it came out, I was hoping for another kind of, I'd have seen it probably about 95, 96. I'd have been either end of high school or beginning of sort of sixth form college age. Yeah. And I was hoping for another Clerks or maybe Empire Records or something. And there's a bit of that in there, don't get me wrong. It's not as sort of juvenile humour or in the way of Empire Records commercial, really. But I'd always seen it as kind of a mix between that and, say, something like Reality Bites.
Yeah.
So you've got that more serious side. Like I say, it's that it's 20-somethings, not teen. Yeah. And I think that's why I really liked it as a youth. I mean, I've looked back, I have sort of skimmed through it and researched it a bit for this, but I'm looking forward to seeing it on the big screen. Well, not the big screen, but the VHS bigger screen.
Yeah, with an audience.
Which I think will be really, really cool. But there's just something different about this movie for that, and I think almost it was sold too much as a rom-com
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was.
I mean, maybe. I mean, like I say, if we're just talking going back to the when it came out, I mean, and around that period of time, this is really not the kind of film that I was interested in. So my recollection of then with this film, I just remember seeing it as like, oh, it's another one of those movies that I'm just not going to like, because it's just not the kind of movie that I'd be interested in at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't really speak on that. Like, I can't really speak on then, like how that was all how that was all happening.
Whereas I was like, I'm into this music. Maybe this film is for me. You know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I always found when I just speaking on that, like, it's a really good point. Like, there is a element to the film that should sell it to so many people, and I don't know if that works. I'm not sure. I don't think it did. I think there probably were a lot of young people like me who were like, oh no. They're just putting in that music to try and like get kids to like it, sort of thing.
And then maybe the other way around as well. People who want to see a rom-com don't want the dirty grunge.
Yeah, you know? Absolutely.
You know, they'd want, I don't know, Mariah Carey or someone.
Whoever.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't have the white cover of them stood back to back looking annoyed to each other.
No.
But the poster, which I really like, it's very bluey grey white background, and it's Matt Dillon and Bridget Fonda, is it?
I think it's the main. I think it's all like 4 or 5 of them.
There's two of them on a bench, isn't there?
I thought it was more. I see there's some. My brain's saying something else.
Maybe
you're right. I mean, I definitely got the bench, and there's people on the bench in the colour. I'm completely set, but I thought it was more than 2 people.
It might be, but the two are looking like a couple.
Oh yeah, everybody in the if there are more than 2. Or if it's just the 2, are certainly looking like a couple. I mean, that's certainly the poster is definitely selling that this is a movie that is about relationships.
Yeah, well, it's 2 on the bench, and then the other couple, Cameron Scott. Yeah, and I forget her name.
It's Sedgwick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kaya Sedgwick. Yeah.
So them 2 stood up, but I'm sure I've seen a different poster where it's just the 2 on the bench.
Right.
Maybe that's the same track or something.
Yeah, that may be. You might be right about that.
But to me, the cover looks very grungy, but it also very, very rom-commy. So I think they've done a good job with that because that's what the film is.
Yeah, certainly. Without question, I'd say that there was that looking at the poster and remembering the poster, because like I said, don't really remember much else at that time other than the poster. Looking at the poster, it very much was that kind of thing. Rom-com, a bit kind of grungy looking. I would never say. I don't know what people like. We're both slightly too young to have been. If we were maybe 3, 4, 5 years older, we would have been prime for this kind of thing. Let's say in '92. So we would, if we were 5 years old, we'd been slap bang in our teens when it came out. It would have made a lot more, there would have been certainly a thing that would have been, like it's grunge movie sort of. But my memory of it at the time of it coming out is just one of it's a movie for grown-ups. I'm not interested.
Okay, yeah. And then I believe it's 12 certificate, but it might have been 15 when it came out. I'm not sure.
I'm sure it was a 15.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was. Yeah. There's a lot of sexual innuendo and a fair bit of swearing, if I remember correctly. Not like loads of hardcore stuff, but enough to garner a 15.
Yeah, and interestingly, 92, around the same time as Wayne's World came out. And absolutely. Wayne's World was huge, and maybe this was a little before, because I think this film would have been sold to that audience.
Maybe,
but I reckon this was released just before, or they hadn't. The promo was all done because I could see if Wayne's World had come out a year before this would be sold.
Yeah.
To make money off that. But I like it that it is its own thing. I like when I think of grunge, I do think of this movie.
That's interesting because I don't. At all.
Don't know.
I really don't. I've never. I mean, like I say, I come to this film after my period of going through being really into grunge music, and I still love certain records, right? Certain bands and certain records, especially more necessarily certain records, more the earliest of that stuff that was coming out in the 80s before this, stuff that really represents this film and this time, because a lot of what we have here in the backdrop of them going to a lot of gigs that's kind of like our reference point, right,
Yeah.
for the music. It's not that they just listen to all the music's playing in the background. They're going to a lot of these gigs. The gigs seem massive to me. They're huge. They're big things. These bands are big deals. Maybe locally, right? Not maybe internationally or nationally yet, but locally. Where in my head, I always, other than when it became mainstream, obviously, my thinking, because of what I've read and stuff, was that the scene was really small and very contained and in little pockets throughout Washington, not necessarily all homed in on Seattle.
Yeah.
Right? Now that's something that came later when it really boomed, when it exploded, which is what this film very much is representing. It's representing the beginning of the explosion. You know, Cameron Crowe's right there at the point before it becomes the mainstream thing. You can see in the movie that clearly it's on the precipice of becoming this huge phenomenon. And to me, that just doesn't represent grunge, like in the way that I love it.
Yeah, I think that's different takes on the scene. Whereas for me, my favourite of those bands was Pearl Jam.
Right.
Now, Pearl Jam, they came from another band, Mother Love Band, who were on the soundtrack as well. But Pearl Jam didn't have these little small gigs when they started.
No, but because they'd already been in bands.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Had Dry River and things.
Yeah.
That are, smaller bands who started in the grunge. Were a big part of the beginnings of the birthing of the grunge sound. So they were already established.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So, but I'm thinking I came into grunge then.
Oh yeah, me too. Of course. Well, but I just in my head when I think of grunge, I never saw a movie. I haven't seen a movie that represents. The early days, if you want, the sort of the beginnings of the grunge scene, and what kind of people would have been going to those gigs, what kind of people would be involved in that kind of stuff. Not necessarily the bands, but because this isn't about the bands. This movie has nothing to do with that. It's just about their relationships with each other and the fact that they like grunge music, because it's the thing that's happening in the city at that moment. It could have been anything else. If it was a different sound, that's what they'd all be going to the gigs for. Yeah, right?
I mean, you could imagine the same plot really set years and years before around jazz music or something like that.
Sure, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. The music isn't really important necessarily for I'd say 90% of it. It's just the music that is in that city. That city is where the grunge thing is happening, and that's where we have it set. Obviously Cameron Crowe was fascinated by that fact that there was this music scene happening in this city, and he obviously looked at the city and thought, wow, it's really cool looking, it's got lovely locations, a perfect place to film, and so it was. They didn't pretend. We're not in some other place pretending to be Seattle. It really is Seattle, which is great. That's a wonderful thing about that's a lovely thing about the movie. And people can go on pilgrimages to Seattle, people that love the film and go to locations like the apartment complex where a lot of the film is shot, which is all I think pretty much still the same as it was then. So there are lots of lovely little things like that, and I even think they a few years back showed the film outside in the courtyard.
Okay. That's cool.
Which I think some of the members of the cast maybe went to, I'm not sure, but they definitely did that for like an anniversary or something, maybe 30 years or something, because it's probably it would
have been a few years ago for 30 years. Same thing was done around the same time with Dazed and Confused in the park they used.
Right, there you go. So it certainly is. And again, Dazed and Confused comes out like a year after this, and 93, right? Yeah, and I think those you could put them together in a way. I mean, obviously it's that's teenagers, but it's got that smart sense to it. It's kind of like it's coming of agey kind of thing done in a very smart way, even though it might still have moments of silly humour and slapstick elements to it. It's Richard Linklater. He's not an idiot. He made intelligent movies.
So this is the thing as well with this movie. So many films like this. Let's mention Dazed and Confused. They're set years after. Whereas this, what I love about it, it was made then and it is then.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. That's a great thing about it. Yeah. That is a wonderful, like you say, a time capsule of the moment in Seattle. And obviously then that would spawn this music that became worldwide. So for that it's an interesting movie to look at in a kind of modern historical context.
And I'm surprised there hasn't been any or more films made more recently set in that time period. It's like you say, you'd like to have seen a film with the earlier days. surely someone's going to make that film one day.
Maybe they're just worried about making it not because I mean the problem with making movies that are set in the past, especially if you want to be honest about them, not parody them or make them sort of surreal or fantasy, have a sort of fantasy element to them, which is fine. I haven't got a problem with that either. But if you wanted to tell a very honest depiction, there are always going to be people that complain that that's not how it was. That you couldn't do it.
And it would. Yeah, if it's not done very well, it would look like parody.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is one thing I think Dazed and Confused. I mean, I wasn't around in the 70s, but to me, that feels it's got the look, the sound, and
I think for where it's set, which is sort of rural Texas or not suburban Texas. That is probably what it was like. Richard Linklater, who directed the movie, wrote the movie. It's when the movie's set, he is the age of the boy that we follow. Exactly, so that's the boy is kind of like a.
I suppose in a way like Crowe done with Almost Famous.
Yeah, absolutely, that kind of thing.
Shall we talk about the cast? Because there's an interesting and good cast, I'd say.
Yeah,
mentioned Bridget Fonda.
Yeah, Bridget Fonda. From the family of the Fondas.
Who was a big thing in the 90s. I mean, she's retired now. But you've got this is pre Jackie Brown. She was in a rom-com with Nicolas Cage. It Could Happen to You. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Assassins, lots of them. So she was a draw to the film.
Certainly.
Campbell Scott, more of a character actor.
Yeah, I definitely had seen him in a few things. But I never remember him. That's the thing.
And he'd done a lot of TV as well. Yeah. And a lot of people would remember him for a smaller role, but in the Amazing Spider-Man films as Peter Parker's dad. Which is because when he's in things, I remember seeing that in the cinema, and I thought, there he is.
That's the guy from Singles.
And the lady's name, who I forgot to take a note of.
Yeah, so Kyra Sedgwick, who was in The Doors. Wasn't she?
Yeah.
And I remember her in a movie that came out a couple of years before that. What was that? Big movie with Tom Cruise in it. I can't remember what it's called now. Born on the 4th of July.
That's it. Yeah, seen that. And another one who's gone on to lots of TV.
Yeah. So she was a face at this moment in time. She was definitely a face that people knew.
Yeah. And they're probably all. I mean, Campbell Scott was just 30, but they're all.
Around the age of that. Clearly, they are in the movie.
And you've got Matt Dillon, who mentioned, which with a wig, clearly.
Yeah. So he plays the only character in the movie that is involved in the grunge scene because he's an aspiring, lead man of this band that we've mentioned the name of already. And he's certainly the more comedic. It's almost, you could almost see it as like poking fun at people that were wanting to be involved in grunge. So he's kind of like the fall guy for the kind of like the grunge scene almost.
Yeah, but
he comes good in the end. He's not a bad character. He's not someone that we dislike.
No, there's a bit of a more real, but a bit of Bill and Ted in there. As the sort of musician, dopey. Yeah. But you end up being likable. Yeah. Even though he does do some silly things.
He does some silly things throughout the film, but by the end, he sort of realizes the error of his ways.
Yeah.
And all that.
And then the older character, Bill Pullman's in this movie.
He is. He has a scene or a couple of scenes, not in it very much, but I think the one scene where he has a lot of dialogue in is quite a crucial scene. I'd say. A very important scene. So,
there's a lot of smaller roles like that. Actress you may remember from the 90s, Ali Walker, who was in a lot of TV and Universal Soldier. Yeah. And Tim Burton's in the movie.
He is. He has a little cameo, like a lot of the
Eric Stoltz.
Eric Stoltz has a little role, but like how we have people that are involved in the grunge scene playing their little cameos. We clearly have Cameron Crowe's friends, I suppose, people he knows. Who are also playing little cameos as well.
Yeah, and it's those 90s faces.
Yeah.
This is the thing. And it is one of those that when I rewatch it, I probably last watched this properly. Like I say, I've got the DVD and I skimmed through it just to
remind yourself.
Yeah, and watch the special features. If I couldn't make the screening, because I've already got my ticket, I would have watched it all. I was actually hoping there was a commentary on there.
There isn't, though, is there?
No, so I was going to listen to that and refresh me. But but it is one that I guarantee when I watch it, there'll be one or two faces I forget was in the movie.
More than likely.
Yeah, and it's well paced. It's about hour 40, hour 30, something like that.
Yeah, hour 40 sounds right.
For a rom-com is perfect. Yeah, really. You don't need
It's back at the time when people were making these movies with more of a consideration for the audience. Where timing was. Films weren't so long just for the sake of it.
Yeah, I mean some films need to be long.
Sure,
and I think we'll mention one of those in a bit.
But I'm just saying that we all know the fact that a lot of films are made longer these days because people believe that they need to be in order to get their money's worth. It seems, and that's not necessarily the truth. Nice to have some 90-minute, 100-minute films.
Yeah. Which are perfect for the VHS as well.
Ooh,
because you wouldn't have thinner tape. It's a better quality picture.
Yeah.
But no, this is I think to show 90s films, this is a very good choice.
Absolutely.
And it has become a real cult movie. And you've got to think as well that it's stepping stone for Cameron Crowe.
Absolutely.
When you think of what he'd done before and then after.
Yeah. This is kind of like the middle bit between the beginning of his career and then his career becoming a name.
Yeah.
And a star.
This is the thing, because when this came out, those who knew would know I say anything, but it wasn't sold on his name. It was sold on the cast and the music.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it wasn't one that you would see the soundtrack everywhere.
Yeah, like I said, the soundtrack was clearly was massive because grunge was massive.
And then Pearl Jam put 2 new songs on it. Breath and State of Love and Trust, which is one of my favourite tracks by them.
All right.
And
interesting. Smashing Pumpkins also have a song on the soundtrack. They were not involved in the grunge scene at all.
I listened to something.
Well, at least they weren't involved in it from the South, whether they were the Chicago band. But their song "Drown," which is great. I really like that song, and does plays in the movie and is also, like I say, on the soundtrack. Because there are also a lot of songs that play on in the movie that are not on the soundtrack.
Oh yeah, because there's a lot of music.
There's a lot, of course, because and the majority of those are not Seattle bands. So the only the only band that's not a Seattle or Washington band that's on the soundtrack, I believe, is Smashing Pumpkins.
Okay, really. But they are one of those. There's a few bands who were sort of lumped in with the grunge.
Yeah.
Just because of that time.
Yeah. I mean, I can
Smashing
understand.
Pumpkins, Soul Asylum, another one.
Yeah. Again, they're from Minneapolis, which I'd say. Right. Okay. Before we do move on, just one last thing. One last thing about the music. Okay. Peter Westerberg, who does the incidental music in this film.
Is that from The Replacements?
He's from The Replacements, which, if I was to say, of all of the bands and everyone involved, that is my favourite band of anyone involved in this movie. I absolutely love The Replacements, still listen to them to this day. And he is, I'd say, there is a song called, I think it's Willpower, I'm going to forget, from the Hootenanny album, which I reckon is hugely influential on the grunge sound. They came out I think they wrote it in 93, released in 93. And I think that to me is like, wow, that sounds like grunge.
In 93?
In 83.
I was
going
to say,
in 83. Yeah. So it makes sense that he would be asked to do the incidental music throughout the film.
And what I'd call the theme tune of the song is by him at the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's so catchy and such.
Yeah. He was a hook master.
Yeah. The Replacements definitely an influence on
grunge.
Yeah. And I think I sparked you with them by saying Soul Asylum. I sort of
from the same part of America.
And both started in the 80s and then almost pushed into Replacements. Are a lot of people when they think grunge do think of them as part of it.
Yeah, well, they should do.
Because they
have a very distinct sound that clearly has the hallmarks of what becomes grunge. So
Right, we've actually spoken about this a lot.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, we'll move on.
Yeah, so that's on at 7:30, Screen 2 on the 21st of February, Friday.
Yeah.
Should we quickly go through what else?
We've got some other movies.
Yeah.
Some newer films, of course.
This should be online before Thursday, the 6th of February, when you're showing Maria.
Yes.
Which Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
The director of Spencer and Jackie.
That's right. I think we might have mentioned this last time briefly because it was on. It was on in January on the last day of January. As well.
Of course.
So I think we have mentioned it.
But since then, I've seen it.
Right.
And I will recommend it. I think if you like those other 2 movies, you should like this.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about the characters based on, but I thought it was engaging, interesting, great performances.
Yeah. Well, we've had a lot of people saying positive things because we have.
It's one that's kind of. I'm glad you're showing it because it's kind of gone under the radar a bit.
Yeah. Strange that.
Yeah.
You would have thought it would have had a little bit more. But there's a couple of movies that I think that have been like that. That looked more. They were sort of. People were talking about them in a way that sounded like, oh, they're going to be huge, 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 and everyone's going to be talking about them further on down the line, and they've kind of quietened down a bit.
Yeah,
so,
and Angelina Jolie isn't in much nowadays, and he's still a big name.
It's true. She could do more behind the scenes.
Yeah, so I'd have thought, but well worth watching. If to you it looks interesting, go see it. And I really liked. I thought Spencer was really good. And I liked Jackie. So
Jackie was great.
Yeah. And what else have we got? Have you? We Live in Time.
Oh yes, We Live in Time. So you've seen that one as well, I think.
Yeah.
So that's coming out this week coming.
Yeah,
so,
another rom-com for pre Valentine's Day rom-com. This.
Yeah.
We got Conclave as well. We've mentioned that.
We have certainly mentioned Conclave. Baby Girl coming out as well.
Baby Girl, that is out on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Great performance by Nicole Kidman. This is getting a lot of attention. A bit edgy.
Yeah, the trailer looks it.
Yeah, I don't know.
You've seen it?
Yeah, it's one you don't really want to say much about because you don't want to give much away. Bit of Saltburn vibes, I suppose.
Is it a sort of mystery? Is there a mysteries like twist to it?
I don't want to say.
Okay.
But number one, 18. It should be very adult film.
Kidman's great in it as well. Brutalist. If we're running through them.
I was just going. I've got an order here, so hang on. Oh, okay. We missed out Nickel Boys.
Oh, of course, Nickel Boys coming out the same week as this week coming.
Yeah, Saturday the 8th and then Thursday the 13th. This is another one that I've heard nothing but positive things about.
Brilliant.
Slipped under the radar.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got my ticket for Saturday. I really want to see this. Haven't seen it. All I can say is. Just look up the ratings and stuff it's getting. It's And then you showed the trailer before whatever I saw last at cinema, and I'm like, good, you're getting it.
Becoming a guinea fowl. I reckon.
That's the one. Yeah. And you're like, you're getting it. So I booked my ticket more or less there and then.
There you go.
Really want to see this one. And what else have you got? You've got Japanese season.
Yeah. So this is Ghost Cat and Anzu, I think it is. Anime movie. Looks good. Looks fun. So if you like anime, come for that one. I'm forgetting the date right now off the top of my head.
Yeah, I know you're showing a couple of these movies on Thursdays.
Yeah, I think all of them will be on a Thursday.
I
think for this season of Japanese movies, of which there are 6. 2 this month.
Penalty Loop?
Penalty Loop is the second one. And I think that's on the
20th. Thursday 20th.
So, again, couldn't really say much about that one either. But they all look good. We do have a brochure on this season of Japanese movies, as we are not the only cinema showing who are part of this festival, as it were.
Okay.
There are many films. We are not doing them all. We're only doing 6. I would say there's got to be something like 20, maybe even more. But there are only 6 of those movies that we are showing. But they all look like hopefully going to be really good in us. And everyone should go and check them out if you're interested in Japanese cinema.
Yeah. And I know a few people who will probably listen to this who are. Yeah. So get yourself there. And obviously the Oscar nominations are out.
Yeah.
And you've got 2 of the big ones. Complete Unknown.
Yes.
The Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan biopic. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
You have.
And there's been a lot of these biopics out lately of musicians from the last sort of 30, 40, 50 years. And honestly, for me, this is one of the best, if not the best.
Oh, wow.
I thought the performances are great all round. Yeah. I mean, he's Oscar nominated.
Yeah.
Deservedly so. And when I first heard about the cast, I'm like, this fella's not Bob Dylan. But he is.
Yeah.
And Ed Norton's in it. Great to see him in the film doing well again. He's had a troubled few years through not being cast like he used to. But great, he stands out. I don't think he was nominated, but it wouldn't have surprised me if he got Best Supporting Actor nomination. Don't think he was, though.
Oh.
He might have done, I don't know. But they're all good. The film looks fantastic. Obviously, if you're into Dylan, a great soundtrack.
I think there will be a lot of people coming to this movie. Yeah, on the basis of it's a Dylan biopic, and a lot of people.
But I would say you don't have to be a Dylan.
Sure, I'm sure that's absolutely true.
And it's another interest. It's interesting how things have changed because a lot of it focused on him going from acoustic to electric.
Sure,
and
that's in the trailer. There's a lot of that,
and which was a big thing for him.
Oh, absolutely.
But I thought it was really, really, really good. and that's on. You've got several showings on Friday the 21st, the 22nd at 2:30 and 7:30, and Thursday the 27th. I've written at 7:30 and 7:30, so I think that's 2:30 and 7:30.
Yeah, that'd be right.
And then the week after, the last day of February going into March, you've got The Brutalist, which is another one up for loads of Oscars.
Yeah.
This is my pick for Best Picture out of what's nominated.
Right. I think that's what most people are saying.
Oh, look at me jumping on the bandwagon.
That feels to me to be the movie to beat. And it's Oscars, so they may throw in an unexpected win for the big one that happens on occasion, where this one may get like all the others it's nominated for. But
I forget the name of the film, but there's a musical that's getting very mixed reviews. That'll probably win everything.
Emilia Perez.
I've not seen it.
No.
But Brutalist I thought was fantastic. Do not be put off by the runtime. I will say that.
Did you enjoy the interval?
There's a 15-minute interval, and there's an hour 40 and an hour 30 either side, something like that.
That sounds right.
An hour 30. But who doesn't watch two films back to back or double bill?
Sure.
And it's that. And the interval was cool. Like, I went for a little stroll.
Yeah.
Checked my phone.
Yeah.
But the funny thing, when I saw it, about an hour and a half through, I heard from a lady in front. Got up, she went to the loo, came back, sit down, then the interval happened. I get a little chuckle. She obviously hadn't read the interval.
Right.
If you're listening, sorry. But no, this was really good. Just a really good drama, it spans the years. The cast are fantastic, and I have to admit, I did have to check after whether it was a true story or not. It isn't.
Yeah. I know it's not a true story, but
I went in kind of blind. I didn't really.
Yeah, well, I'd heard that it wasn't a true story, that it's fiction. But it's probably told in a way that suggests that there's someone that's life this may very well have been similar to.
Yeah. But Adrian Brody, brilliant. Mike from Neighbours, or Guy Pearce, as he's also known, brilliant, and Felicity Jones, brilliant.
Yeah. So all the main cast, everybody in it's brilliant.
Yeah, it generally is.
It's fascinating, this one, because I haven't seen it, but it's getting all this love. Seriously, it's just so much love. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've experienced hearing about a movie which I know so little about, getting such praise.
Yeah.
And considering it's as long as it is, generally that is, often you'd have people go, oh yeah, that was a great film, but it would have been, better if it was shorter. No one's saying that. Everyone's saying, no, the runtime is absolutely warranted. It's perfect.
Did you see my Letterboxd review? I got a few likes. Simply put, to be honest, I thought it should be longer.
I mean, that's who says that though? Like, who honestly says that's what loads of people are actually saying? That it's a fantastically paced and the length is absolutely right for it. Yeah.
But my only worry is I'm praising it too much, and people go in knowing that praise, and therefore being like, well, "It's not that good, Andy." I think if you do like a movie, tell people about it. Be enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's so much negativity.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that.
And with every film that I've seen that you've got coming up, I'll be honest. Some of these movies I like a lot better than others, but for different reasons, I would recommend all of them.
Yeah.
For different, even if it's, I'm not going to say there's one of them that I didn't enjoy as much as a lot of people, but I can see why people did, and I'll recommend it to people who I think would like that, because we've all got different tastes.
Yeah.
There's a movie coming out. I don't think you're going to show it. It might be Companion.
Well, it certainly is a possibility,
because
we have talked
three
about it.
people. I have seen it. 3 different people messaged me saying, "We won't tell you I won't tell you anything, but I think you'll love it."
Right.
And I did.
Right.
I really liked it.
Yeah.
Another one that I'm glad that people push up. There's a lot on at the minute. I've got a lot going on.
Yeah.
It was one film that just going by the post. I thought, well, I can probably watch that on streaming later or whatever, or not watch it. And then because of these people telling me they thought I'd like it, I went to see it, and I'm so glad I did.
Right.
And that's why I think we should talk about movies as well. We do this podcast.
Sure. But people should be more be as enthusiastic as they want to be about the things that they like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah.
You know, and if you don't like, so I'm a personal. If I don't like something, move on. But you know, don't you know, have a go to because someone else may love it. This is the thing. Unless I find something really offensive.
Well, yeah, sure.
You know.
But you could say a similar kind of thing. I can understand people being annoyed and upset by someone talking about something so passionately happy and excited and in love with a movie that another person may see as absolute trash.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure that people get that opinion that, no, this person that thinks it's wonderful, they're wrong.
Yeah,
You know, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, I don't. But I like 2 words. I think.
Yeah,
I like
sure.
that. Yeah.
Well, it's an opinion, isn't it? I mean, ultimately, everything is just an opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, this is art. It's not a thing where you go, it is certainly good or certainly bad, and you can't deny it. It's nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. There's a film, you're not showing it, you know, I know you considered it, that I really loved, and I know you didn't.
Yeah.
But we can probably see why each other have this opinion.
Yeah.
Saturday Night.
Yeah, Saturday Night.
Yeah.
Didn't hate it, but didn't think it was very good.
I thought it was like Birdman, but good.
I did like Birdman.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's interesting, and I even though I don't, it's a difficult one because what wins the Oscars ultimately, I don't care, and it's nowadays especially, it's not really remembered what wins, but I still enjoy it. I enjoy people talking about the films, and I enjoy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a person who likes even dressing up smart, but I like seeing Hugh Grant in his suit. You know, I do think it's something that it's one of those traditions in the world I kind of like.
Okay. I mean, I don't mind. I don't really care too much for awards wherever they are, whether they're in America or anywhere. But they're important for us from the cinema point of view because they do give hype to certain movies, and therefore, if we expand on that, work on that, then that will help us.
Yeah,
you know, for ticket sales and such.
Yeah, so, it's good for cinema in general.
Not it is absolutely. I mean, like I say, it gives movies this boost.
Yeah,
right, which then infuses people to go and see them.
Yeah.
So,
and another one this year is The Substance.
Yeah,
because that's a sort of film you wouldn't expect to get Oscar nominated, and that's not gone away, and I think the Oscars revived that film, and and it gives directors, actors notice they wouldn't normally get.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, right. We should probably wind it up.
Yeah, we've done
a bit of a rant. Don't know what we'll be talking about next month. There'll be something.
Oh yeah, there'll be something. But and it'll be good.
Yeah.
You know.
So thank you all for listening. Hopefully, I'm going to go along to Singles. Hopefully, I'll see some of you then. Yeah. And
Singles.
I think we should all. If I see if I can dig out a Pearl Jam t-shirt, we should all go dressed really grungy.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That would be.
That
good,
would be good if everyone.
I'll shred up some jeans before and.
All you got to do is go to Primark now and get yourself an advantage.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. To be honest, I could just say go fancy dressed as grunge. I'll just go dressed how I normally dress.
Exactly. You look exactly the same, apart from having lesser hair than you did.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same as you've always done.
Yeah. I'll wear a big hat. So, thank you all for listening. Don't forget, keep checking out the King Street website, the Facebook, Instagram. Things are updated. Often films are added if something comes up on there. Follow them. I do nothing for the cinema apart from this podcast and go along. But I really like the post you put. I think you keep everyone updated well. But you've got to follow it to see it. You know. So do that, please.
Yes, please do that.
And seriously, everyone, thanks for listening. And I'll see you at King Street some point soon.